Hi, this is Besch. I'm the Global Vegan, and this is the Global Vegan Podcast. This is my intro. This is the first time that I've finally decided, after many, many years of being told I should start a podcast, that I'm going to just go with it. And I'm going to do it in a video format and also through audio. So you will be able to see me and hear me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you can find podcasts, which, quite honestly, I don't really know exactly where that's going to be at the moment. But yeah, that's for me to pay a 20-year-old to figure out. So I am actually in Hoi An, Vietnam, which is where I've been living for roughly the past 12 years almost. February 1st, I moved to Vietnam. No, sorry, March 1st, I moved to Vietnam, 2012. So I've been around for a bit. I moved to Hoi An 6 months later. So I was in Nha Trang before, but I am calling myself the Global Vegan for a really good reason. I've been out of the United States. I am American, if you couldn't tell from the obnoxious accent and the volume of my voice. That I am American and have been gone for close to 19 years. I started traveling initially to the Ukraine, and then I went from there to Kosovo. I was in Ukraine working in an orphanage doing volunteer travel for a month, and then I went to Kosovo the next trip that I was on, which was not that much longer later. I don't really remember. It's been almost 2 decades. Give me a break. But basically I started traveling and then realized that I wasn't fucking rubbish at it, and I was really bad at everything else in life, and so I kind of just kept doing more travel and less of other life in the United States, where I clearly didn't and still don't belong. And so then Kosovo is where I met my second husband. I've been married twice, divorced twice, and I met him in Kosovo and very quickly got engaged to this man that sounded like Dracula, and so I ran away to Poland to live, and then we traveled through Europe, and then I've been to a lot of other places other than that. I think I'm missing a lot. But yeah, I went through Europe and tried to move to France, got robbed of everything we owned, moved to Holland, realized that we were really too poor to live in the Netherlands without really good jobs. And so we went back to Poland, and then later we moved to Mongolia, got divorced in Mongolia, lived there for a year. And from there I went to South America because, like, what's the farthest you can go from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, where your ex-husband lives? Santiago seems to be the farthest I could get at the time. And so I went to Santiago and then traveled through South America a little bit, Chile and Peru. And where did I go from there? I went through Moscow, someplace. I don't know. I did the Trans-Siberian. I've done a lot of travel, so I've been around. And I did not become vegan, however, until I came to Vietnam. So when I say global vegan, I'm talking about not just my travels before, but like so I've been traveling for a really long time. I've been out of the country for a long time. I've been living in other countries for a really long time. But as a vegan, I didn't turn vegan until 11 years ago. February 1st, it'll be 11 years. And so right after I turned vegan in Vietnam, when I moved here after I was in South America, I then, because I drink too much coffee and I'm slightly insane, I decided to start an animal rescue. And so I've been running Vietnam Animal Aid and Rescue since March of 2013. This has been a really long time, to run an animal sanctuary in Vietnam. And we're the first and only farm sanctuary in the entire country. We were the very first nonprofit veterinary clinic and sterilization program and veterinary training program. That closed after a few years, but because apparently, who knew? It's really hard to get money if you're a really outspoken vegan. People fucking hate you. So yeah, we lost that program, but we've continued the farm sanctuary, been trying to reopen the vet clinic. So as a mobile clinic and a non-speciesist veterinary training program, which would be pretty crazy and unusual. So that's kind of my travel story and where I am right now. But also throughout the years, I've been able to travel throughout Asia as a vegan. I've been able to travel throughout Europe as well as a vegan, because basically I don't know if anybody else works with animals, but your body falls apart a lot. I have to drive a motorbike here, of course, so motorcycles, motorbikes, and on bad roads. And so like my back is just not really built for living here all the time. So sometimes when I leave, I go and I pet sit in Europe, and then it gives my back a minute to kind of like be not fucked. And then I come home. So I travel throughout Europe as a vegan, and live in other people's houses and love on their animals, and then I have to leave them. It's sort of a strange life. And my chicken needs me to bring her. She's watching me through the window. It's very scary to be stalked by a chicken. That's Linda. You'll learn more about Linda as time goes on. So yeah, basically I've been doing my vegan life as a global vegan for a really long time. I have a perspective of animal rights as well that is based a lot on living in a communist country and a authoritarian government, and having very limited understanding of my former life as American, where everybody just protests in the streets, or generally the idea of what animal rights is for people in the West, in countries that have a lot less limitations on what we have a tendency to consider activism. And so one of the things I really want to talk about in this podcast, the reason I call it Global Vegan, is because I really want to focus on the differences between the animal rights movement in different parts of the world, and how a political, economic, cultural, social, religious context changes the way that the animal rights movement and veganism in general is spreading throughout the world. So how do we manage that? What does that really look like? And hopefully I'll be able to get some guests on that will help me explain that a little bit more, but I also have a lot of personal experience in it that I'd like to kind of get out there. I personally have a degree in international relations with a concentration in international politics and Russian and Eurasian studies. So my focus when I was in university at American University in Washington, D.C., was on post-conflict reconstruction in the Balkans, particularly. That was really something I was into. So I kind of I guess I ended up in rescue sort of by accident, but not really by accident, because I really like messes you have to clean up. And so I've always been very interested in how the world creates giant messes, and then we put everything back together, and what does that look like? And so now I'm kind of in a microcosm of what that is. Then I got my master's degree in emergency and disaster management. I focused on animals and disaster, particularly human and animal relations and disaster, and climate change related disasters specifically. That was my thesis. So I am really interested in that. I recently wrote an article about speciesism and disaster management for the global, what is it called? The Global Journal of Animal Law. Global Animal Law Journal. There's 4 words and they're all kind of mixed up in there, but anyway, you can find that, and I'll put links to that as it actually finally gets fucking published, because they're taking their sweet time. Sorry, Oxford, but get it together. Yeah, because I sent it in September. I'm kind of waiting on that. So yeah, I'm really interested in animals and disaster, and that kind of frames the way that I talk about animal rights, especially, and kind of animal agriculture. I'm super interested in global food security because I fucking love to eat, and I really like it when other people can eat too, and talking about the way that the food system currently sucks is a big part of that. And so global food security, definitely going to be a topic of discussion, and I'd really like to get into that quite deeply and see if we can get some experts to chit chat with me about that as well. But I've got plenty to say. I can go on about that forever. But yeah, talking about turning a animal-based food system into a plant-based food system is a very big topic, and we really need to dive hard into that because we've got a lot of people that are hungry and will get hungrier as time goes on. So let's go ahead and put that on the table, and especially the fact that animal welfare organizations very clearly do not give a flying fuck whether the planet continues to eat, because they continue to support animal agriculture. That comes to my next point. I'm an abolitionist vegan, so I very strongly believe in abolishing the use of animals in all contexts. And I am really anti-welfare, because welfare is really about talking about how to do the wrong thing the right way and spend a whole bunch of money doing it, instead of just, I don't know, using those subsidies for transitioning people away from animal agriculture towards food people can actually eat and not die from. So that's an idea. So yeah, I really like talking about food security, food systems. I like talking about animal law and how we're talking about animal personhood. People have a tendency to think global animal law is all about welfare reform, which I think is a load of fucking horseshit. So I'm going to tell you why it's a load of fucking horseshit. And another warning here, I'm going to have to put out some warnings. So there's a lot of topics that I like to discuss, particularly as a sanctuary owner. I really, you got to look at it from where I'm standing and what I've seen in the veterinary industry and the rescue world and the welfare world, animal advocacy dominated by welfarism. And so I swear a lot. I am a vulgar woman. I am hugely fond of profanity. I have zero filters. I don't trust anybody that can't say fuck 4 times in a sentence. I really struggle with that. I do not, under any circumstances, believe that saying fuck makes me, fuck, shit, motherfucker, cunt, whatever, makes this unprofessional or it makes me an idiot. I think, this is a subject that there's a lot of things to swear about, so we should be kind of honest about them. But yeah, I am a bit profane. If that's not your vibe, that's fine. You're welcome to fuck off. I don't really care. So I'm not for everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm generally not my own cup of tea. So I think that's true for a lot of people, but I think it's important to kind of address what it means to talk about subjects that are really hard, and it's okay to use naughty words. So I'm also a little bit vulgar. One of the subjects that I do like to cover is sex. I don't really have a filter for that. I apologize if that offends you. I don't really apologize. I don't know. I feel obligated to apologize for it, but I don't really fucking care that much. So yeah, we are going to talk about sex as vegans, the world of vegan sex and sex products and sex industry, sex work. How that relates in a lot of ways. In Vietnam, we have a lot of sex trafficking. That's not really necessarily related to veganism, but it is a liberation topic. If you're going to talk animal liberation versus human liberation and the struggles of those that are intertwined, we can talk about that. But yeah, I tend to be vulgar and profane, and that's just what I am. But I am pretty well educated, so I kind of back it up with that. I got a master's of disaster, so I kind of sound like it. But basically, there's a lot of stories that I'd really like to share from my 11 years of working in the shelter and my work in animal rights and what that looks like from here. But I really want to be able to cover how it looks in other countries and why it's different from what we do here, what our limitations are and what other limitations are in other places, and why we got to stop with this one size fits all of animal rights and this very colonial sort of Western kind of version of it. I'd really like to talk at some point about capitalism versus in the food system and how we can kind of move away from that and what does that look like. And these are topics that I really need to explore for myself as well, because the food system is really one of the places where most animals are abused and killed. And we have to really talk about that. How do we build a better one? And does that necessarily come through capitalism, or are there other alternatives that could be a little bit more effective and slightly less oppressive? So the agricultural system has a lot of problems, and I think we can talk about that. But yeah, also straight up unfiltered, I am bipolar 1. which is the bad version of bipolar. There's two types, and I got the one that sucks the most. I am also ADHD. I was late diagnosed ADHD in my late 20s, which I refused to acknowledge at the time. And in my mid 40s now, I am 44, and I have finally come to terms with the fact that that is definitely at times crippling. At the same time, I have these two things that are major, I don't know, I would say factors in resilience. I think for somebody who's experienced severe compassion fatigue after watching things die for a living and burying bodies before dinner, that I have every right to be quite sad. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that some mental illnesses do assist with resilience and coming out of trauma, as opposed to being just trauma and just destruction, because we've got a lot more than that. A lot of it is creativity. I don't think I could do this job if I wasn't batshit insane. So I really do want to talk about that, mental illness, and then in relation to compassion fatigue, and are these different? Are they related? We shall find out. So yeah, basically that's my intro. As long as you're into vulgarities and profanities and talking about big subjects that are sometimes really uncomfortable and that will challenge your idea of what it means to be an animal rights activist, then welcome aboard. I am particularly hateful of social media because I've been doing it for a really long time in order to just function in the organization, and I miss talking to humans in the room with me, and I miss a lot of just sitting around with people. I live a very isolated life, and I think YouTube doesn't necessarily alleviate that, talking to a fucking camera. But yeah, it's better than nothing, right? So I'm really happy to read comments. I'm really happy to get some feedback, and then we'll, be able to kind of have a discussion, and maybe one day I'll meet people in person. But yeah, Hoi An as a vegan in Vietnam is ever so slightly isolating. Especially running a rescue in a country in which every other rescue fucking kills animals while saving dogs and cats. So, speciesism pisses me off. You'll hear about that. So anyway, yeah, that's my story. I wasn't vegan until I was 33, so I should point out that if you've got problems with people who who were not born vegan, then this is also not your place, because I very much came from a background of loving animals and participating on a daily basis in their abuse. And I rode horses for a very long time and for a living for a while, and managed stables, and was into something called 3-day eventing. My sports were 3-day eventing and dressage, show jumping, some polo, fox hunting a little bit, just kind of all sorts of horsey sports in Virginia. And I kind of deeply regret that. So, I don't regret it. It's made me a better activist. It's made me more understanding of where that came from. I hated vegans. I wanted to put them all on an island and napalm it. I really just didn't have any interest in being around them, and which is funny because I think I didn't meet one until, I guess I met one very briefly when I was in my 20s, and then I didn't again until I was in until I was in Mongolia. I met my first vegans and couch surfers, and they kind of like blew my little mind. And I went to my first vegan restaurant around the corner from my house in Mongolia, in Ulaanbaatar, where I lived for a year. So it was a loving hut. So anyway, everybody comes from a different background, and I'm really glad that I was such a shit show. And now I've done a 180, and here I am running the only farm sanctuary in the history of Vietnam, country where my Marine father used to kill people for a living, and then was CIA. So my parents actually lived here in Vietnam, and the reason I'm here is I came back to show them what had happened to Vietnam in the 45 years since they left. And I forgot to leave. Shit happens. So anyway, join us for the ride. I hope to see you all soon.